Today, let's talk a little bit about where BattleTech goes now after the Mercenaries Kickstarter. Welcome back to those of you who've been here before. Welcome to those of you who are new to the channel. This is, fair warning, this is all speculation on my part, what we're about to hear. But this is where I think some things are going to go now that the Mercenaries Kickstarter is over. For those of you that didn't see it, it was wildly successful, bringing in over $7.5 million. They did not hit the $8 million stretch goal, but if what I'm seeing on the forums is correct, the items that were going to be made available by the $8 million stretch goal are going to be made available for purchase in the pledge manager. They're not going to be free like they were supposed to be to certain backer levels, but they are going to be purchasable because they're far enough along in production. They're just going to go ahead and make them. At least that's the way I understand it. So, fingers crossed, because personally, I really want that Somerset Strikers box set, because it has two of the House Kirita mechs that I want, and yeah, looks like the best chance to get them. So anyway, so what's next? Well, for sure, the pledge manager, and we'll do a video on that once it opens, because I'm sure it will have other things than what was in the Kickstarter campaign itself. That's where like certain core rule books will be made available, and probably damn near everything they currently have in production. Because one of the reasons they do this is, one, I mean, they're producing them right now, so why not? But number two, for those of you who are overseas, it helps to be able to order a whole bunch of crap all at once for one single shipment for shipping purposes instead of piecemeal. So that is a concern that they do try to address here. Yeah, so that'll be the next step, and then presumably I wouldn't expect any new products between now and then, just as a matter of everyone's working on the pledge manager and everything. But there could be new fiction between now and then. I just wouldn't count on it. But I could be wrong on that. We'll see. Now, I think once the pledge manager opens, at that point, it's mostly, technical stuff in the background that has to run. I mean, any adjustments to the pledge manager, obviously. But it's mostly like, letting people fill it in, and the data and money's accumulating someplace. That doesn't take as much of an active hand. So I think that's when we'll start to see some bits of fiction will probably start leaking out for purchase again. Some of the products that were available at Adepticon will probably start to work their way into actual distribution. And that would be the Snords Irregulars Force Pack, the Urban Mech Lance set that has the 4 Urban Mechs with the different weapon configurations, and the Proliferation Cycle, I think is what it's called, Force Pack. That one has the first battle mech, which is the Mackie, and then the first mech for each of the 5 houses, which I don't know off the top of my head, and the first Omni-Mech for the clans. So it's basically a box of firsts. So it's 7 mechs in there. Hopefully those find their way into other boxes at some point, because like the Mackie, for instance, I'd actually like to have a few of them, and I don't want to have to buy all the others for that, but we'll see how that goes. And I didn't realize I didn't explain Swords Irregulars. That's a mercenary set. The main thing there is it has a Frankenmech in it. And for those that don't know, a Frankenmech is a mech of cobbled together mech parts from other battle mechs. So it's not like a specific design for it. It's not a specific kind of mech. This one in particular is, I want to say it's a Warhammer and an Archer put together. I don't know right off the top of my head if that's correct, and I think it has swappable heads, a Phoenix Hawk head. I don't remember what the other head is. So it's definitely a first. I don't think there's any Franken-mechs in metal, but I could be wrong on that. So this might be an absolute first here. So those three products, the technical readout, the first technical readout that features material compiled from the rec guides that were the ones that were updating the older mechs to have variants that had technology in the Dark Age era so they could still be relevant. So the first of those, which will have the updated versions, and I'm assuming some of the new models that debuted in there as well. So the first of those came out, and there were one or two other products I don't remember off the top of my head, but those should all start cycling through to retail soon-ish, for a given definition of soon. Hopefully before Gen Con, so they're not like a rush to get them at Gen Con. Speaking of, I would expect something to debut at Gen Con. I just have no idea what it could be at this point. Probably, if I had to guess, I would say that we could be looking at another force pack of some kind, which I don't really know which direction they'd go here. It could go for another Mercenaries set. Because that is where all the recent ones went, and that's where the Kickstarter went. That could be where they debut a faction-specific pack, because they have talked about that. But this is probably too soon for that. August is probably too soon between now and then. That's probably more like sometime next year, if I had to guess. So, because that will require tooling up new units. Let's see, what else could it be? The paint set could see wide distribution by then, I suppose, assuming it's not already. I haven't really looked for it, but I don't know that it's really out there. There could be another technical readout book, because there's more than enough material, I think, in those rec guides for a few of them. There could be some other one-offs made. Like the first Kickstarter had the Urban Mech and the Shiloh aerospace fighter, and this one has the Visigoth and the Blood Asp. So it could be that they have another one-off made as a surprise. I would doubt it, but you never know. They might have some of the dice, or some dice that will be similar to the dice in the Kickstarter, because they've contracted out a company here in the US to make them. So they might have some, they wouldn't be prototypes. They'd either be advanced copies, or there'd be ones that just aren't going to be in the Kickstarter, but are still BattleTech relevant, however that works out. So you could have those. That's about it on my guesses for Gen Con for now. So it could be some new print novels, obviously. Yeah, I'd say that's a possibility. But big picture beyond those, I would think that the next steps, from what they've said, are probably going to be faction force packs of some kind. I don't know if they're going to tie those into the faction. They're not guides. I don't remember what the hell they called them. Not field manuals, but they are making some kind of books that are going to be kind of like, hey, so you want to play House Kirita? Here's what you need to know. Here's the things you need, you know, kind of stuff. And presumably the force packs are going to come out in lockstep with those, but I don't know for sure. In which case, that's all probably next year at the earliest. So beyond those, I would expect that the next box set, which probably means the next Kickstarter, I could see probably going one of a few different ways. Looking at the past, there was a City Tech box set, which kind of focused on urban warfare. I don't know. I don't have an old one, so I don't know what all's in it, and I don't know what that translates to currently. I don't know if that's like a focus on infantry and what you can do as far as buildings. There hasn't been a whole lot for urban combat of this newer iteration of everything. There's a set of urban maps in the Kickstarter, but there's not really a whole lot that focuses on urban combat, except probably in the Total Warfare book. But it's not like a stripped down version like there are for these other things. And that would also help for vehicles too. So that could be a way they go. They could go, there was an Aerotech box set. I think it was called Aerotech. I think everything's called it something tech. And that's focused on like space combat and aerospace fighters and stuff like that. I'd kind of like to see that if it's either at the aerospace level or if it's at more of a macro level where you're fighting with like warships and drop ships and stuff like that. Purely space combat, primarily. The scale will be off then, though. So, I don't know. But that's a possibility. Now, they could, since the first Kickstarter was based on a time point, the clan invasion, and the second was more of a general, you know, this has to deal with mercenaries. The third could go back to a timeline-based approach, and we could either just advance the timeline, in which case the next event is either the FedCom Civil War or the Jihad, or kind of merging the two, or the end of the clan invasion, I suppose, or kind of hitting all three of those all at once. Because I know a lot of people really want them to get to the current moment, or at least through the Dark Age and then into the L-Clan, to see all those units made in plastic. However, the folks at Catalyst have said on the forums, or in an interview or somewhere, but it got repeated on the forums, that they do want to make the Word of Blake mechs in plastic. So, for my money, that means the Jihad. And hopefully that would also see the Word of Blake land air mechs made in plastic, which would hopefully prompt the other land air mechs to be made in plastic. Unfortunately, they'll probably have to go for their Project Phoenix versions, because I don't know if they want to poke. I don't know the specifics of the Harmony Gold thing, so I don't know if they feel safe in poking the bear on that one. We'll see. That would be really nice to get the old land air mechs in plastic the way they're supposed to look, or, you know, as updated for their current iterations, and then as land air mechs. That would be great. I don't know what the odds of that happening are. I'm guessing slim, but that would be great. So yeah, I mean, then beyond that, I mean, the main thing is just, you know, filling out mechs for different eras and moving everything forward. There's way too many mechs to have them all in plastic anytime soon. We might get to a point where we have a lot of them in plastic, but I mean, there's tons and tons of them. because, you know, they had to sell the technical readout books. You know, hey, you want to buy the new book, there's got to be new stuff in it. Well, it means new mechs. Uh, yeah, so that was you know, that was a thing in the past, and I mean it's still a thing now. Like, even with the timeline advancing, they're still making new mechs, which, you know, it makes sense. You know, new weapon systems, new armor systems, you know, new designs. It's gonna, you know, things are going to keep moving forward. So anyway, obviously there'll be new novels. Now, I don't know. This is a thing they'll have to figure out, is just how gung-ho they are on moving events forward. Because so far, there's not a whole lot on the novel front after the Battle for Terra for the L Clan. There's source books, there's 3 of them, but they're all essentially like, here's where things stand a few months to a year afterwards. Just so you know that, you know, we're not just, you know, it's not just Earth, like, here's where everything else stands. And so, you know, that's more of an update than that doesn't seriously advance things. And they could probably stand to just, like, let things kind of chill where they are right now for a while. There's still, I think, 1 or 2 of those update books to come out, or at least one. It's Illicon's Eyes Only is the one I know for sure. And so there's still plenty of older stuff to flesh out if they really want to. Like the like the first and second Succession War books aren't that old, even though that's some of the oldest stuff in the timeline. There probably won't be a third Succession War book in the same vein, because the third Succession War was a hell of a lot longer, more spread out, and it was a different war. So, you know, it's not going to be nearly as easy to compile into one of those books. But I'm sure there's still all kinds of other past eras and past battles that can be fleshed out. Hell, I think the most recent book release is during the Jihad. It's a novel set during the Jihad. So, you know, there's just all kinds of other eras of the timeline, and I would expect that they're going to do more backfilling, because I know that the 3 novels that were advertised for the $8 million stretch goal are set during the Wars of Reaving among the clans, and that's an era that has basically no coverage aside from the book, the source book, which is excellent. Should definitely check that out if you're at all interested in the clans. And then the book Icons of War, you see a little bit of what's happening because it's in the clan worlds during the course of the book, but it's a lot of like lower level action. It's not the big picture stuff. So, you know, hopefully we'll see a little bit more of that, because the Wars of Reaving definitely needs to be fleshed out. It's interesting. I don't know if there's any books that cover the revolt of the society there in the clans. That would be an interesting topic for some novels. There's probably still stuff set during the Dark Age that they could cover, you know, even though it's got a lot of novels for the Dark Age. But anyway, that's my just kind of rando speculation on where things are going with the product line. You know, we'll see if I'm right. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. Let me know what you guys think. What do you guys want to see down the road? Yeah, let me know down there in the comments. You know, the usual like, share, subscribe. We always appreciate those things. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you later.